This conference will now be recorded.
You have a basement. You got a basement.
What? I got what I said.
You still got 10 seconds. Ready to go. Right? I do it now
Okay.
so I don't forget it.
Now you made me late.
I don't know.
Right on time. So we'll start the meeting. Welcome, everyone. I guess it's a full house because there's no parking out there. So welcome, everyone. I'll call this meeting to order if you would take the roll.
Robertson,
Here.
Councilor Marujo. Yes. Councilor Moore. Councilor Kevin. Yep. Councilor Arnold.
Present.
Have a quorum.
Thank you. I will entertain a motion to put the agenda and the minutes together. So moved. You need a second? I need a second.
Second. Sorry. I wasn't at that meeting, so.
Okay, any discussion? All those in favor? Aye.
I guess so.
Okay. Motion passes, thank you. First on our regular items is resolution 25 excess condemnations. Mr. Franco.
Good afternoon. Council staff, I have one property, 732 Salamina Street. This one will probably rank in my top 10 work. This one is, we got a call to meet here. Well, we got a call from PD to meet at this house. Apparently there was a cold blooper. Turned out to be a 1-year-old baby. And, the house door was open. As soon as I got there, you could smell the inside from the street. Really, really bad. Had dogs living inside the place. Had another child in there. The property owner, Mary Jane, I think she's passed, she's deceased. So her son was there. We talked to him. He made a call to the office, never went in. Asked about obtaining a building permit for this property. Of course, he needs to get a contractor to do so because it's not in his name. And we haven't heard anything back from him.
You know what happened to the family? Chief, where are you? Chief? Oh, no, you're fine. Do you know what happened to the family at this home? Oh, okay.
The only contact they've had is through phone. They never went into the office or anything. I haven't heard anything since.
Okay. Any discussion? Yes.
Madam Chair,
Actually, yeah, I think.
where is the family that, is it empty? Is the product, is a,
Every time I've gone by there, there's dogs outside. I can't tell it's empty or not. The doors are closed. The house is still posted. Like I said, the guy called in asking for information, how to bring it back up to code. We talked to one inspector, the inspector told him what to do, and we haven't heard nothing since.
Is the other child still in custody of the parents?
Nothing like that.
I mean, Chief, do you know?
UAFD would have been called, I think I don't know. If I remember, I have to look, but if I remember log, I think UAFD took custody of the other children.
Okay, yes, ma'am. Your question? That's it?
no, below Lonnie.
Anybody else? Okay, I'll entertain a motion.
Like to make a motion, resolution 25-XX, condemnation, consider recommending adoption of resolution 24-XX. The resolution shall require the removal or demolition of one completed structure.
Second.
Legal. To legal committee.
To legal?
Yeah.
Does it have to go to legal?
Yeah, because we're taking legal action against the property.
We usually just go to council.
No, that need to be.
Oh, okay.
We always send them to legal.
Okay,
Legal,
No,
some it's legal.
Second.
I'm just.
no, you're
that's
fine.
fine.
I appreciate it. Yeah. Okay.
Second.
Mhm.
Yeah. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Thank you. Next on the agenda is consider recommending approval of a purchase order in the amount of $1.2 billion to, sorry, the Martin Emergency Group for Demers? Is it
Demirs.
Demers? 4x4 Type 1 ambulances.
Yeah, Madam Chair, members of the committee, we're here to ask that you would consider recommending approval of a purchase order in the amount of $1,288,380 to Sid's Martin Emergency Group for 4 Demirs 4-wheel drive Type 1 ambulances. This is in accordance with Ordinance 23-10 that was passed in 2023, raising the tax to work on raising the funds to work on our own ambulance. So this is in accordance with that. These units are, just telling Mr. Cole, June to July. There's still not a sturdy time frame with the thought of tariffs coming down the pipe and the whole 9 yards. They're not 100% sure if it will be June or July. They're stock units, the units that are being built, and we were able to put our names on them. And they're great units. They come with everything you need to transport a patient. They're high quality. If we do a custom build, we're 3 years out. So very similar to a stock build on a fire engine, stock build on an ambulance, has everything we need, and just a very short time frame delivery instead of 36 months or a couple months. And I'm happy to answer any questions.
Okay, so just so everyone knows, this is a public safety tax that we approved a while back. So that's where the funding would come from. Anyone else on the committee?
So, Madam Chair, I got a question because, part of this, you read that it's going to take 36 months, but we're talking about these coming in June or July. So we're talking about site within the next 4 months. So we're going to buy these on this current budget, or are we looking at, because we've got other issues with, I know we're starting this deal and I wasn't a part of creating this. I'm new to the city council since then, and I don't have a problem with it, but I'm just, it insinuates it's going to be 36 months before we get these and we're paying for them. So it looks like to me, what you're saying right now is that we're going to receive these in June or July and spend 1.2 million on these out of the public safety.
Madam Chair, Mr. Kevin, that is correct. This will come out of this year's budget, but this comes out of the special increase, the tax increase. The gross receipts that was earmarked for ambulance, and the number 1 box on that was ambulance operations and staffing. So
I did speak to Corin a while back. He said we need that up to $5 million to spend it, and it was over $4 million. Do you remember what the amount is?
when we checked the other day, we were over the $5 million mark.
Okay.
It's over $5 million according to Tony. I was in her office the other day.
Okay.
And so Dan, Madam Chair, walk us through the difference between being able to order and request those units versus actually encumbering against it, so we secure those units.
So at some point, we eventually have to put our money in the game. We have to say they've done a really good job, and Mr. Ristom, who has the sales rep on these, has done a really good job and has really fought for the city of Roswell and saying, hey, we're going to earmark them, we're going to earmark them, we're going to earmark them. Eventually it comes down to, hey, we got to put our money where our mouth is. And so by doing that, we're at the place where we got to put the money to secure them. If we don't secure them, we lose them, and we're looking possibly years down the road. They're stock units. So one could pop up again in 9 months. It may be 18, 24, 36 months out. We don't know. And that's the kicker on these. It's always an unknown game when you're dealing with stock units. We can always custom build, but again, that's 3 years out.
So by encumbering, we're securing at a specific set price.
Yes.
And again, we mentioned possible steel tariffs.
Yeah.
That could impact.
Yeah, we're locked in at this price. The price that is in there is locked in. If we don't procure, honestly, if we don't procure this, maybe in April it goes up. The price is no longer set. And we're looking at a like a 25 to 35% increase per unit. It gets very expensive at that rate.
It said price guaranteed until 2/14. Are we still locked?
They wanted the signature, and they wanted to know it was going down the route. It's still secured. I've confirmed that again today. The price that we have here is the price that we.
Arnold.
Yes. Madam Chair, I'm going to try to think of how I wanted to phrase this question. Considering that the public safety tax was actually imposed to create, I guess, an ambulance service that's ran by the city, how do these play into that? I mean, because we're using the funding, I want to kind of ensure we're using the funding according to how the public safety tax was considered. It was considered to create an entity for the city, and therefore are these going to be part of that?
Madam Chair, Councilor Arnold, yes, that's, in order to run any type of transport service, we have to have the ambulances first. And then you'll see shortly hereafter on the agenda is the cardiac monitors and the gurneys to operate, to make those transport capable. So in order to, however we want to decide to structure it, whether it's its own city entity or the fire department running it, the city has to own the ambulances before we start the process. And
how many did we need? Because I know that was kind of a big part of creating an ambulance service, was a lack of the trucks and a lack of equipment.
To successfully run 911 services, four right now will do. We have a reserve, and we have mutual aid with Dexter and Hagerman as well. And this will get us in a very, very good spot as we currently sit. So this will put a huge dent in that. Type 2s are to come as well. We don't have type 2s at this very moment, and so that'll help with the long distance transport game, but to get people who call 911 to the hospital, which is the utmost importance. This takes care of that.
Okay, and a lot of my questioning is just to actually publicly ensure the public that we are taxing them appropriately, and that tax has a purpose and a goal that we are shooting for.
Yeah,
it kind of marks that. So thank you.
You're welcome.
Anybody else?
Mr. Chairman, question real quick. You were talking about the four we're going to take care of, but you were talking about Lake Arthur, Hagerman, Dexter also. So what does AMR do right now as far as servicing Chaves County?
I'll speak on behalf of Mr. Kevin, Mr. Prescott here, and he can chime in. So as it sits right now, they offer mutual aid into the county. They are paid they may be paid a stipend from the county to provide services as well outside the city limits. Just as Dexter is also paid to respond outside of city limits, Hagerman is paid to respond outside of city limits, and so forth. And so it's very similar. And when it comes to the municipalities of their own and within their village city limits, I believe they're just mutual aid agreements in response. And so currently they do what we do when they request. We have written assignments, agreements in file, and we go down and aid.
Right.
I know the county does help offset some of that cost. I know we bill them every year, and I think they provide the same cost to the ambulance as well.
Right. So Dexter, Hagerman, they've got their own ambulances and stuff. And they do all that, but they rely on AMR to assist with that.
Yeah, Councilor Kevin, if I can answer to that. Dexter and Hagerman, both two have their own services. We do respond within the city of Roswell and all over the county. So any calls that are in the north part of the county, they go clear up to North 285. Anything out east, west of the county, that's our response area as well. If Dexter does not have a response within the tier system, they don't respond within two alerts to that call. We respond to Dexter as mutual aid. Same thing with Hagerman and Lake Arthur. So we're covered pretty much with the whole county.
All right. Thank you. Thank you for that service. Yes.
Anyone from the public have any comments? Just so you know, this did have to go to finance.
Yes.
Yeah. So whoever makes the motion. That's the motion? Yes, please.
Madam Chair, I'd like to make a motion to consider recommending approval of a purchase order in the amount of 1.288380. I guess that's million. Sorry, I went about that all wrong. To Siddons Martin Emergency Group for 4 Demers, and type 1 ambulances to go to finance for consideration.
Second.
Okay, any more discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Thank you, Mr. Foley and Kevin. Next on the agenda is Resolution 25XX, consider recommending adoption of Resolution 24XX, creating the community response team within the City of Roswell Fire Department. Councilor Arnold.
Thank you, Madam Chair. This is actually something I guess we've been working on since what point was it last year, October? I think that we started implementing the subcommittee. And so I noted that by February, we would have a presentation. We created a subcommittee, and I'm actually very excited because we have a good majority of our subcommittee here, with Commissioner Dana, Kevin Berry, Dan Jennings, and Tim Bertine, and of course, Councilor Moore, and then Mayor Pro Tem Halverson has been part of this subcommittee for several months now, and the goal was to kind of outline what it looks like, and then create a resolution out of kind of outlining some of that. I just put together a little presentation. Basically, actually, I would say the whole team did. Sometimes I say I, but there's always a group of us. So we're basically, the purpose of a community response team is to advocate for the formation. I'm sorry, I have that wrong. The purpose. Yes. The purpose of the subcommittee was to advocate for a formation of a community response team.
93.
And the benefits of that, of a community response team would be to improve emergency response, reduce law enforcement burden. It would be a fiscal benefit and enhance public safety. And this is through the 2 years of research that we have kind of done. I will kind of let you guys know that just a CRT team is actually just part of a bigger plan as far as jail diversion is concerned, and this is just kind of one of the little facets of that. So we've kind of gone over a lot of this, but I wanted to kind of reiterate where we were. Let me see here.
Can I ask a quick question? What does CRT stand for?
Community response team.
Okay.
Not what you would, I was told to don't say CRT.
You gotta say the words. Yeah, it's a lot of different.
What's the other one?
So I just.
Critical race theory.
Oh, okay. I would next, yeah.
I knew it wasn't that, but I just wanted to get what.
Okay. No, I think that on that first introduction, because it does come out, I will keep that in mind. Yes. So a hybrid model, because there's 3 different types of models. The team selected a hybrid model, and that is a combination of first responders and civilian crisis intervention specialists. And these people usually go through training, or their education actually is very vital in creating a team like this. This team would include law enforcement, mental health professionals, EMT, and peer support, and would be under the management of fire and finance. The reason we actually included finance per Mr. Eintema's kind of recommendation is the actual leaders of this, the ones who are seeking grants and working on that aspect, would have to possibly be under finance. So I just included them. We've seen, and actually the team has experimented and actually been part of studying and researching, and we've also had, Chief has actually seen it as well, different municipalities who have implemented either a crisis response team or a community response team. And so those municipalities are Colorado Springs and San Antonio, Miami, Hobbs, I believe Alamogordo is working on one. Albuquerque has one. I don't really care for Albuquerque's model because they actually just send behavioral health specialists into, onto calls. And I think you actually need a team that goes on to those calls. Our current need, we all know that Roswell currently has rising mental health and substance abuse incidents. And I'm going to stop right here because while we were in Colorado Springs, when I say we, that's the chief, Kevin Berry, Deputy Chief Aldana, and myself, we went and visited Colorado Springs. And a point that Deputy Chief Aldana made was that right now, Roswell has what he considered a juvenile problem compared to Colorado Springs. Colorado Springs has an adult problem, but I found that aspect and that viewpoint very beneficial because we're on the precipice of this growing larger and this issue growing larger. And if we can actually create a program right now, then we will have a huge lead on gaining control of it. This team has the potential to handle 3,332 calls a year, and that's data that we had requested from dispatch. So that's an average, and that would be 9 calls a day. And that's according to the types of calls that we would actually assign to this team. Another reason that we actually need something like this is we currently have an increased strain on police and emergency medical services. And at this point, our officers we're down on officers, and the police department is something we really need to look at. We're short officers and they are stretched thin, and we believe this program would actually relieve some of that burden, also create the opportunity to attract more officers by giving, having an ability to start offering a higher rate of pay to attract officers. Good afternoon, sir. We have a growing homelessness and public safety concern, and we have a higher need for non-police response, non-emergency calls. So program protocol and operations, we have a response. This would be a response team handling non-violent crisis such as 988. Dispatch through 911 and non-emergency lines is how the team would actually know when and where to respond. Collaboration with the RPD and the the Roswell Police Department or Roswell Fire Department when necessary. Immediate support and follow-up services to prevent recurring incidents. And this is actually a very interesting statement because one of the cases I studied, this person within a 24-hour period had 3 interactions with the police. And in my assessment of this case, that actually could have been stopped by a crisis intervention team or a community response team on the first call, leaving it where we didn't have to respond to the 2 additional calls because it would have been possibly handled by the community response team on the first one. So you kind of look at that, and if we have the ability, if you have an interaction with someone over and over again when they're going through their crisis, that takes up time and resources, and this team is perfect for addressing that, hopefully on the first call. Program funding. What the subcommittee assessed was that there's different sources of funding that are not out of the city's general fund. The opioid settlement funds, it's actually something that we actually have Dan here who's pretty skilled on knowing a lot of that. Opioid settlement funds, the several parts of this would be covered under that. Program director, your licensed clinical, your social workers, your peer recovery, that they would fund that equipment. We have the public safety tax and revenue. It is something that we could actually utilize for our paramedic that would be on the team. There is state legislative funding and grants, and currently there are several bills in action at this legislative session that would bring quite a bit of opportunities for funding for programs such as this throughout the state. Also, the cannabis funds, I believe, are, I don't know that we've actually utilized them for much at this point. If I kind of have heard that they are not really directed towards anything, but this is actually something that I believe could actually go back and benefit the community using cannabis funds. Program setup. So how do we set this up? Because once we actually, the subcommittee has met and created the resolution, so what's next? Basically, the program setup would be considered by and tasked with the city administration. So the placement would be within the Roswell Fire Department, hiring and training of community, you guys got me thrown off with the CRT thing. With the community response team personnel, they would actually create crisis intervention training of dispatch and public safety staff. And I'm going to actually give Commissioner Dana a moment to speak because she kind of had some input on that, thoughts on the crisis intervention training and how that can be a county thing. Development of operational protocols and oversight mechanisms. So basically, the city administration would look at creating an SOP. One of the things that I believe would probably actually make this a lot easier for the city administration is a program director, and that the first step would be to hire and consider a program director. Program directors are very hard to come by in this community, and luckily the team has been interacting with Kim Burkeen here, and someone that we would hope that you would consider. She's had great experience in our community, working in the clinical area at the hospital, working at the rehab, and working at Job Corps. I think she has the connections and the knowledge, and she's worked as a director in several of those positions. And I think she has the knowledge and the skill to help us set something like this up, because she's, of course, been with the subcommittee for a minute now. And I think she has the right connections to assist, so the weight would not necessarily be completely on the city administration. There is someone that they could actually work with to begin creating that. And there's also been goals of having the program director not only be part of this, be also part of the opioid funding to implement anything that is a portion of that with the county. And I think this is called the Roswell Chaves County Opioid Settlement Solution Plan. This is being presented tomorrow, Thursday morning at 9 to the county. So as I was kind of noting earlier, this community response team is just a small portion of a large master plan that the jail diversion committee that was created by Judge Hudson has started to implement. And one of the things to consider is that the community response team, while it would be a part of the city fire department, the actual master plan and the jail diversion plan actually has the resource. It's part of building the resources. So the community response team could utilize a triage center or a centralized hub for resources. So all of that is part of a greater plan. And this is just a small portion that would have other resources being created from other, portions of the city. This was just the first one that we actually started implementing complete action because of the timing of the county and where we're at with that. So this would not just be a complete burden on the city. There's other community entities that they would be able to work with. Conclusion and action. The community response team will enhance public safety and emergency response efficiency. Funding sources are available to sustain the program. This is basically a request for committee endorsement and resolution to move forward to the finance committee. So once the resolution is attached here. Once we actually vote for that, it will need to, of course, go to finance for approval. That would be its next step. Like I said, the actual, the resolution is attached, and the subcommittee team worked to build the resolution. And so basically, I put this presentation before you in hopes that you will definitely recommend and support the resolution to move this forward to finance. At this point of the presentation, there's questions, and I wanted to actually, if you guys would allow me, I would like to get a little feedback from the actual subcommittee members. Commissioner Dana, would you like to add anything?
Yes, thank you very much. I am Chaves County Commissioner Dara Dana from District 1. I was asked, along with Councilor Arnold, to be on this task force by Judge Hudson. Judge Hudson approached us and asked us if we would go to the summit. That was 2 years ago. We went to the summit. It was an AOC summit on behavioral health. We went up there. We heard from Miami-Dade Judge Leifman. Be sure and go on. You can Google Judge Leifman, and it tells you about the Miami-Dade model. I was able to travel with Maria Ordonez down to Miami October before last, just to see what the Miami-Dade model was. The first piece of the puzzle that they give us at the Miami-Dade seminar, it's a 2-day seminar, is your CIT training, your crisis intervention training, and it comes with dispatch. Dispatch is your very first call. Dispatch goes through this training. In Miami-Dade, they go through every year with CIT training with 8,000 officers and their dispatchers. So I was like, well, that's pretty impressive that you can do that every year with 8,000 officers. And that's to keep up with training, not only training with your law enforcement, but also with your behavioral health. Behavioral health has changed over the years that we have all seen. Behavioral health is now on your streets. It's in every home. I bet you everybody in this room has at one point or another gone through their own behavioral health issues. How do you treat that? Well, Miami-Dade, when they started going out and sending their officers, they found out when you send an officer in full uniform, full gear, badge, gun, everything, it escalates. Well, you don't want that incident to escalate. You're trying to de-escalate. So what they came up with was the crisis response team. They go out there and they help deal with this. We had officers that had been on the force 18 years. And this was something that was kind of near and dear to them, because when they go out, they're seen as bad guys. And they're like, we don't want to be seen as bad guys. We're here to help you, to walk you through. But they ran into a problem. I can't take you and walk you through the whole system and get you into that crisis or wherever you need to go. I have to take you to jail. Our jails are not our homeless centers. Our jails are not our mental health center. They go into jail, they get the meds, they walk out of the jail. Where do they go? We have no place to send them. So they came up with a place where a triage center, basically, where the officers or whoever could take them. So then they come up with the crisis response team. They have a homeless response team, and they have peer mentors. And the peers that we heard from 3 different peers. A veteran who had gone into crisis and had some issues. Now he goes out on the streets and he helps the law enforcement. Like I said, it's a law enforcement person, an EMT, paramedic, and a social worker, and he goes out too, because he is able to contact and talk to those veterans and tell them, I have been where you were. I was at that low point, but there is help, and let me show you how to get to that help. And what they call it is a warm handoff. How do we take those people and give them a warm, warm handoff to the resources? So when Christina and I came back from the seminar, we did what we called a field trip. We went around Chaves County looking at our resources. We found out we have a lot of resources here in Chaves County. The problem is they're siloed. So, and also, how do we get that person to the resources here? So with your crisis response team, they can also get them the help, but they also know forwards and backwards what the resources are, where are the resources, and how to get that person in there. And that's what you call the warm handoff. Plus, case manager. You case manage that person and get them from point A to point Z. And that helps. You don't, every time we hear and we go through, I have been on, and so have you, Commissioner Cavan, City Councilor Cavan. We have been on the DWI Planning Council. We hear over and over and over and over. How many cases have you had in your program? 9, 10, 12, 20. Out of that, how many are repeat offenders? 9, 10, 12, 20. The program's not working. You're not hitting that person. So with your case managers, you are actually taking that person from point A to point Z and hopefully getting and fitting them into a program that actually helps them. One size fits all does not work. So, and like I said, we have many programs out there. It's just a matter of getting that person in there. The crisis response team is not new. It has been around for many, many years. It's just New Mexico is kind of behind, like we always have been. This legislative session, if you look at SB 1, 2, and 3, gosh, lots more that are out there that are going to be dealing with behavioral health, crisis response team, and also funding to put in your triage center, or if you want to build, like Hobbs is trying to build their own behavioral health center. City of Clovis is the federal agent for 5 different counties that are going to put in their opioid funding. They're pooling their funding, and they also received $10 million from the governor last year to build a behavioral health center. So like I said, it's not anything new, but the concepts are out there, the models are out there. With our opioid funding and a lot of other things, there's grants out there. There's all sorts of funding out there. It's just a matter of taking the ball and rolling with it. Like she said, it will help our law enforcement. It will help our citizens in this town. And I think it's a great concept. What if we got to lose and let Chaves County and Roswell be a model for the state? The state, we keep hearing we can't do it, or there's no way to do it, or how do you do it? I want us to be a model on how you do it and it be successful. Thank you.
And Dan, do you guys have anything you want to add for Cliff?
Sure. My name is Kevin Berry. I'm a licensed therapist for the last 22 years and also done volunteer law enforcement for the last 15 years. And that's kind of how I guess I had the passion to talk to Christina about setting something up like this. I think the data matters. Up in Colorado Springs, when they started this 8 years ago, 75% of their calls, mental health calls, ended up in hospitalization. It's now down to 15%. In San Antonio, when this started 2 years ago, in April of 22, they started it. There was reservations from the fire and the police. And just this last year, they presented to the city council positive impacts of this team, and they funded 2 additional teams 24/7. 1% of the calls in San Antonio end up in arrest, only less than 1%. 35% of the calls, they connect someone to mental health resources for the first time. 60% are getting connected to health resources for the first time. And 56% of their calls, the subjects on those calls have follow-up where they, 3 months down the road, they are successful. They're not the repeat offenders that she was talking about. So I do believe that the data matters. I believe that they're effective. And my hope is that we can use the funding that's out there to make it happen here in Roswell.
Dan Jennings, I'm the county counselor for the town of Hagerman and also the coordinator for 100% Chaves County Initiative. And I've been working on the subcommittee for several years now and created the opioid response solutions plan. City of Roswell and Chaves County have an unprecedented opportunity right now with settlements that have come down from the distributors and the makers of OxyContin and those kind of prescription medications that were abused and created the epidemic that we're facing right now. There is an unprecedented opportunity to use those funds for good. We spent over the last 6 months doing focus groups and surveys with the community residents here. And most of them said that the first interaction that most people have with the mental health system is through law enforcement. And that was really interesting to unfold. So asking what would be a better solution instead of just a traditional response in that, the community response team approach started to come out from conversations. So most of the residents said that having the peer support workers, I spent 20 years in the Department of Corrections working in the education department, and we would have the same repeat offenders coming back through the door. When we started implementing peer support, we found recidivism rates for those that were engaging in the peer support program drastically reduced from about a 56% recidivism rate we were normally seeing down to the last numbers that I had were about 10%. So because of that, the peer support approach in a community response team model makes a lot of sense. And having the paramedics and law enforcement officer on the team helps ensure safety for not only those that are on the team, but the individual that is being encountered, and also to ensure that the mental health and the physical health system is not overwhelmed and burdened by sometimes things that are not necessarily their responsibility. Of course, working with the Chaves County Detention Center and the security team out there, they would be here to tell you the exact same thing. They see about a 60% return, and those individuals are typically there just for mental health or drug issues and not for a violent crime. So.
Last person I'd like to hear from it, I've kind of actually made a call in, but Chief, considering that we're looking at putting this at the fire department, what are your thoughts on it? You traveled to Colorado Springs.
Yeah, I think for the fire department, one of the advantages that we saw when we spoke to the fire department in Colorado is that there was a reduction in the use of ER beds, and it kind of opened up the emergency room for those purposes to use the ER for what it's designed to be used for. So they had those numbers, and they could show support on those numbers, and so that was really interesting for us. And then both the police department and the fire department that were there in attendance also confirmed that the call volume had reduced for them on those types of calls, where they were able to free themselves up for more 911 specific calls. Those are the two things that really hit home for us, and I thought those are kind of the positive aspects of the team that could help the fire and police side of it.
Mm-hmm. So next I'll open up counselors. Any questions, any input, any thoughts from the additional members of the team?
First half, I apologize for missing the last two meetings. I just wouldn't work in my schedule. One of my question was the 911 calls. I guess we're going to be training them as to what calls to send this.
Yes, that's what crisis intervention, and I have a feeling there's additional things that we could actually different training programs that we could actually access to make sure that the dispatch staff is very aware of what those calls look like and how to identify them.
Yes, ma'am.
If I can answer that, the actual software system that we use to triage calls has something in it where we can where it will be referred to a specialized team.
Okay.
So the only thing that's
beautiful
really concerned with is those calls that come in that aren't mental health calls.
Okay.
The disorderly person, the removed subjects. But we can do local agency policies that fit a certain criteria, then the system will actually triage it and tell the dispatcher this qualifies for a specialized response.
That's wonderful.
Okay. Second, I had a problem with dipping into the public safety tax revenue because I want to use that for if there's money left over for salaries for our first responders. But if it's just to pay an EMT, I'm okay with that.
Yeah, that was actually specifically to cover the paramedic.
And I'm all 100% for using the cannabis funds because cannabis is causing all these problems anyways, or not all of them, but a lot of them. The county, I don't see money from the county, and the county was going to create a position. Wasn't the position for the director going to go through the county?
Well, we had, y'all had authorized, I guess, in the generation to pull the funds, the opioid funds for city and county to go through county. We were working on an MOU. That MOU got shot down by a previous commissioner, so we're back to square one. So I don't know if the city wants to pull their funds and go a different direction and figure out what we're going to do with the county.
So if that's the case, and we pass this resolution, how's this going to move forward?
If we pass the resolution.
Yeah.
And then finance, it would go to finance. They would actually, we would get it through there. Then it goes to main council. And once it goes to main council and passes main council, that's where the program set up. So then that's actually where the city administration would come in to create a team to start building what it looks like, the SOP. It would also, and that's why I recommended Kim Burkeen here as a program director, possibly for both programs, for the opioid too, once if the county ever starts to create that side of it. But this is basically, it would fall under the city. And honestly, in my opinion, the city administration can actually elect to keep the subcommittee going, to keep the people that have been working on this, for a minute and working with the program director so that the actual weight is not necessarily just on our city administration. But it's basically just enacts them to ensure that that is moving forward and that it's set up. And I also want to say that I have put out emails requesting that the city's opioid funds be pulled and taken. And even being part of building.
I remember those.
Yes. So because for that very reason, the city has money that was allocated to us. Those opioid funds actually belong to the citizens and should be utilized to create programs to assist our citizens. And it's just sitting in an account. We have allocated that funding to go to the county, and it's sitting there collecting interest, cannot be touched for anything but this program, cannot be added to the general fund. And so that is why I've asked our counselors to please pull that money back so that we can get it implemented and utilized, putting it on our citizens where it belongs.
Okay. So the best thing about this program, I think, is the case management. So there's follow-up.
Yes.
Because that way it stops the recidivism.
Absolutely.
So I guess the county's not giving anything.
We don't know. We have new county commissioners, and I don't know what their direction is going.
We'll be presenting for them tomorrow.
Or Thursday?
Thursday. The rest of the plan doesn't.
Okay, because I do think it's a good program. Just I want to make sure it's funded properly, utilized properly.
I think the biggest concession that I would ask is that in having looked at our crime stats and our incident stats for the last 4 years, it's basically the definition of insanity. We really are doing the best we can with what we have. And so I'm asking the city and the council to consider trying something different that we know works in other communities. Now, what that looks like, that's why she's saying we have the ability to create a model for other communities in the state. And I'm asking to give it, to give it a minute, give it 4 years, at least let's give it a shot, because we have the funding to at least fund it for 4 years.
Yeah, because what concerns me is, I'm all for the resolution and passing it, but we don't have a plan as to the exact funding, how it's going to be implemented exactly. And that's one of my concerns with passing the resolution without having any of that, in place or prepared.
And so that's actually what the resolution is for, is basically giving direction to the city administration.
So it's saying you can do this. Okay.
We're just giving them permission to start and create it. Because I don't feel like I should be speaking for the rest of the council.
Yeah.
I just want to actually
give the forward to move it forward.
I want to
keep asking in the meetings.
Well, and a lot of our role as counselors is, we actually while the mayor has a lot of great ability to ask the administration to set something up, this is actually the steps to actually ask our administration or, direct our administration to begin the setup of that. And this is what it takes.
Okay. Yes, sir.
If I would like to add also, I was reading an article the other day and I found it on Police One, which kind of lends to building a team. So this was out of Sacramento County Sheriff's Department. They're ending response to all non-criminal mental health calls. And a lot of agencies are following that because of federal case law that came out. And in the federal case law, Scott versus Smith, the court ruled a fatal use of force in a mental health response was unjustified and questioned why law enforcement officers should have been involved in the first place. So I think as you see, you go down the line, this taking away qualified immunity on the federal level is going to put law enforcement officers that we go through CIT training every year. We just went through some, I think, in the last month and a half. Still doesn't get us to the level we need to be. And I think Dan mentioned it, or somebody, when you got an officer showing up in uniform, some kind of.
Yeah, as soon as they see you, yeah.
Works. So on that point, like I said, I think I agree that it's got to be, something's got to be said and done. But that's the way it's leading law enforcement, and the courts are ruling against law enforcement showing up. So to protect their officers, now we're going to start seeing more and more law enforcement agencies not respond. If they don't respond and you don't have a response group, what happens? Just the last thing real quick, and I don't know, it was mental health. A lot of times mental health and narcotics go hand in hand. Not all the time, but a lot of the time. We had a local female last week we transported to a facility in Carlsbad. And she walked out the same day, and we ended up finding her deceased this weekend of an overdose. So I think definitely in this community, something needs to be done. I think it starts with more facilities. Santa Fe's got to get involved, but we're seeing more and more. And this weekend was the latest episode of it.
That's where case management would be.
But then that's where case management comes in. So, you definitely on our end, you have some concerns about the program, but something has to move forward with it. If we don't, we're going to end up at some point with the pullback of qualified immunity, putting our officers at risk, because a lot of times those do turn violent, and a lot of the times it's because they see the uniform. So I would agree that at some point it needs to be done in the near future, because I would agree with that. Because now, reading that article, and I can forward it to y'all's, if I can figure out how to forward it on that deal, I'll forward it to you to read. But it's kind of insightful on where law enforcement's going when it's dealing with mental.
So essentially passing in this resolution would basically help us to instruct that move forward with a program to implement this. Okay.
Absolutely.
Madam Chair, may I add to, the opioid funding is not going to be 4 years. We're looking at 15 years. They're looking at other entities to sue. It's kind of like the tobacco settlement. It'll be many, many years. Plus with the legislature is looking at putting in block grants. That's where your program director has to find those block grants, because it's going to be standalone, and that's going to be one of the criteria. You will find funding for this program, and there's going to be a lot of funding coming down from Santa Fe this session, because they're seeing the need. It's just that you have to find where they stash the money.
Anything else on?
Madam Chairman, it's being in the medical field. People walk out of the hospital every day, and you're going to find that every day, where you're gonna find them on the streets. It is mental health and drugs are going to be, or their mental health and drugs, or the medication's too expensive to buy to keep their mental health stable. And drugs are cheaper. So they're going to have to do something. And having this program and having a case manager is going to help them find the resources to get their mental health better with the medication that they need, or no medication, but the resources that they need.
Anyone else?
Madam Chairman, and I appreciate all the work that you guys put into this. But as a county commissioner, when Governor Martinez basically cut the legs out from all of our counseling, I spent a lot of time with Judge Hudson up in Santa Fe and trying to address the situation that was created by shutting down all of our counseling and giving Turquoise a no bid contract for what turned out to be a year. I mean, they just crushed our counseling not only here, but across the state. I mean, it really did. My biggest concerns with where we're headed here is this, you look like you've done all the work, but I have no idea what the cost is. You want to talk about, so as it stands now, there's an opioid settlement that's singular at the moment. We should have gotten more, but the state attorney general ended up keeping over half of it because they thought that they needed to be in control of those funds. We should have ended up getting more at the local level, which is always the case because we have all these things that are mandated on us at a local level, but it's never funded by the state or the federal government. You have to do it. Okay. But at this particular stage, if you were to claw back the $1.8 million that the city was allotted on this particular opioid, what was the county's part of that? Was it 3 million, 3.2? Okay. So together, that's great if you can come to a concession on how this deal is going to be managed, because I think one of the biggest problems that the commissioners had was that MOU, how this was going to be managed by whether it was 2 city councilors and 3 county commissioners or whatever, created a big problem as they saw it because of our dispatch situation with the Pecos Valley, because we had a former mayor who decided he was going to put himself on there and try and dictate everything that was going on. So I think that became a real issue with the way this was going to be put together. What is something like this going to cost? Because $5 million, you get more later. Cannabis is not the end all. It is not the goat that the governor pushed all this to do. What is our most recent monthly deal on
32.
With 32,000?
30,000 looking last month. It averages about a little over 300,000 a year.
30,000. Okay.
Yeah.
All right. Our public safety fund that former city council created, which I'm happy that we did for ambulances and for our law enforcement, public safety. That's got to be focused on taking care of that. Okay. What, and I realize the cost of it up front, but what about the liability? Because I hear Lance talking about this. I know that back years ago, we lost a fire chief in a situation with someone who was a behavioral health issue. The opioid funds can only be spent on drug abuse type stuff. It can't be spent on behavioral health. It can't be spent on, 15% of it and can be spent on homeless stuff or behavioral health stuff. Well, what does the big picture look like? So you say Hobbs has started this program. What does it cost Hobbs to start this up and get this deal going? Anybody, do you have an idea on that?
The idea is kind of what we've guesstimated that it would actually cost to run per year is for all entities was around 400,000 to 500,000.
That's all. That's with the employee and trainings and then where do you go from there? I mean, if you set up a triage.
I'll be honest, that is why I'm allocating it and I'm asking for us to give it to the city administration. I'm a counselor. And I've been keeping this on the track, trying to get something set up, at least finding something that can be set up. So what I'm asking the council to consider is actually to direct the city administration to start looking into that. This is not the end all be all as far as will it be created, but that is something that we can actually present the full plan to, because what I continuously hear and have heard for 2 years is all of the issues as to why we haven't done something. And all of the questions, well, we didn't like this about it. So tell me what you do like. Tell me what to do so we can actually create motion. Because like I said, 4 years of me, I'm actually at 3, of watching, our numbers in homicides have not gone down. Okay, our numbers in mental health have not gone down. So all I'm asking is for consideration to at least get this to a place where we can create that information for you. Because while I do have a background in criminal justice, and I have worked for the Colorado Department of Corrections psych director, I have all the experience. But what I don't have is this is not my full-time job. I need help getting this information together so that we can actually create movement. Because in 2 years of doing this, it's not gotten anywhere. So this is the only thing I can actually say. Let's start something. And this to me is the idea of how to start it. If you guys have other ideas on how to start it, how to get it moving, I would love to hear it.
I'm not promoting any other ideas. I'm trying to figure out what the cost of this looks like. I mean, so
I don't have
3 years ago,
We lost everything, and that's been what, 6, 7, 8 years ago. And I think Santa Fe is finally realizing that they've got to do something. But
They're gonna fund it.
Santa Fe doesn't know how, they've got, what, $5.8 billion. So that's kind of what they're looking at, is placing some of this money into behavioral health, into the different cabinets. Their SB1 is a $1 billion trust fund to put in for behavioral health, for facilities.
we need to bring Doge in so that they can figure out where all that money is being sent off to. So
to put instead of putting it out to entities, they're going to put it into the cabinet. I mean, there's been lots of stuff that we found in the Department of Health as far as funding goes.
So has it been 4 years now that we shut down the
No, it's been longer than that.
juvenile
Yeah.
detention
Oh,
facility? The juvenile detention facility has been about 4 years ago when the county. And one of the biggest reasons why we did that was, number one, today it would probably cost us around $5 million. Back then, when we closed it down, it was about 3.2 million. Okay, but because the state had this deal that you couldn't put anybody, I mean, if we had one, maybe two people that were in there. And that goes back to our real problem that we have right now, not only in Chaves County and Rawls, but in this country, is because there's no consequences and no accountability. You talk about homicides and everything like that. Okay, if at our public school level is where it starts, and I'm just saying this because 25 years teaching, my wife is still teaching. That's where it is started, is that you don't have any consequences for your poor behavior. You don't, and so that's not something we're going to solve here at this particular time. But my biggest question mark, okay, you say 500,000 to get this deal started. Is that hiring people, rating this deal? Are we talking about 10 firefighters that are going to be dedicated to this, and how does that picture look on a daily basis? Because I would dare to guess that most of the time that these type of things go on in the middle of the night. My son is a police officer. He's been involved with a guy butt ass naked in blue dye who bit the living crap out of him. Okay, these things go on majority of the time late at night. Okay, and we do need to have some type of response time or a response team, but it's not always about the drugs. We've got some real mental health issues around this country, and that goes back to the mid '80s when we shut down our mental health hospitals and stuff. And so now you put it back on the families to have to try and deal with that, make sure they take their meds and control. We have people who run around here with swords and all kinds of different situations that are just off the wall. And it's not about the drugs, it's about their behavioral health. Okay. So, and I apologize, go ahead.
No, and it's because the medications are so expensive. Because if you don't have insurance, it's $5,000 to get that medication. But no, what we're looking at right now is to get started. We're only going to be for maybe 12 hours at a time. And we're going to hire our own paramedics or our own paramedic. We're going to have that dedication of that.
You say that the city is going to?
Yes.
Okay.
I'm sorry.
And I apologize. I hear 500,000, but I know, what does a paramedic with benefits and everything cost a day? About 70 with benefits?
No, close to 100.
So double. Okay. I thought you were going to tell me 40, but
Yeah, right, the same way.
And as a team, we'll have a paramedic, a counselor, and a police officer. Is that correct? That's the team.
To minimize, because I'm fairly new with all of that. Okay, 'cause I am pure medical. Okay, I'm just pure medical. And I was got into this because of the love of the mental health and medical. And we do have a problem here in Roswell. And I get money, I really do. And right now, we have, on what I hear right now, we have the funding. Let's get it started. Or at least get it passed, and we can figure out the numbers. And let's go for it. And let us be the model. Let Roswell be the model of New Mexico. And then we can start building to the rest of the country. But we've got to start here for our community, our citizens. That's what's more important.
I do have to say, Mr. Kevin, I'm happy to see something because the last meeting I did go to, I asked them, we keep meeting, but nothing's getting done. How do we move forward? So this is, I guess, a step forward.
Well, and let me just say that as far as pushing this on to finance, if you don't have any real numbers or you can't really talk about this, it doesn't even need to go to finance because we're not talking about financing something right now. We're talking about moving to the next level of how you build this out and what's that going to cost.
Then you go to finance.
This, I mean, so as I see what you're presenting here and the resolution that you want to do is to move to that next step. This goes back to when we were trying to get the former mayor to create an authority out at the airport. And we had the committees together. It came back where that was a really good idea, but we needed to go to that next level on what that was going to cost and stuff. So we have the same situation here. Okay, so if we want to go to the next level, I'm good with that. Okay, but we need to know what that cost is going to be. And it can't be about what the cost is today. It's got to be what the cost is going to look like 10 years from now. Okay, and whether we're building triages or we're doing this, and we want to be that model. I'm good with that. Okay, because we need to be able to address this, but really and truly, it goes back to everybody in this room knows that anybody with behavioral health or drugs and stuff like that, they can walk right out of that hospital. They can walk right out because everybody has their civil rights and they can't be stuck somewhere and have to stay there unless they choose to do that. And so there's a lot of people that have gone off to rehabs and stuff. They didn't go to rehab because they wanted to or because whatever. They did it because they had to finally make that choice to go to rehab and spend a month, a year away from the environment that got them to where they were at. But everybody has that choice today. So that's something that we have to take into consideration when we're doing this. Yeah. But the liability is such a huge part of the problem here because our state has ripped the cap off of these lawsuits. And whether we're talking about medical or law enforcement or firefighters or dealing with this stuff, we put this team together and we don't handle the situation right. The next thing you know, someone's writing up a report and they're filing a lawsuit against us because we didn't do our due diligence as the city of Roswell by putting this deal together and providing this crisis response team or community response team or.
Real quick, if I may, and then the mayor, you're recommending that we just send this to council because we're not spending any money at this point, so there's no need to go to finance. So send it to council. If it's resolved, then it goes to the city management. They come up with information, the numbers, and then we can go to finance.
I mean, you're not promoting something that's costing anything right now, correct?
Mayor, Mr. Mayor.
Yeah, I just, whenever you put any of this stuff together, I mean, it needs to be a lot of people, and your police and fire are extremely important to be involved in this. I mean, I don't care. We've already been down the road where we sent 2 ambulance guys and a fireman up for help, and it cost them a lot because they didn't have any protection. We've been down that road, and the liability for us to do it again would be astronomical, just because we should have known better. And so when you look at that, we need to look at when you start talking about mental health, there are a lot of other issues that have to be addressed before we can get there. I mean, forever, all we ever had in this whole town was Dr. Gervais. And you look at that, and some things happened to one of my, kids, and I remember when that happened, how hard it was to get anybody to treat them. And I mean, or even to talk to them about it, about how they were abused. And it's extremely difficult to do, but we have a huge problem with, if you look right now, just for physicians, we're short physicians everywhere in this state. There is virtually no medical care here except in helicopter out of here. And you have to look at that, and we can't get people to address that. And the trial lawyer thing at $4 million and stuff that they have for a physician, I can't even get J1 visa people from anywhere coming here and applying. And so we have a lot of issues. I think the idea of getting a task force together and get a team, a counseling treatment team is good. But I think I would have a hard time sending anybody to a situation that Lewis walked into with the other two ambulance guys. I mean, I don't want to send anybody into that. That scares the heck out of me, because he was always nothing but a gentle giant. That's all he ever was. And I can't send anybody else into that. And I think looking at it, we get some plans together, get a crisis team idea together. And it has to be done with the police and the fire and the ambulance people together. They're the ones that have to do it. We've got to then come up, we need another team to figure out what to do with them after you get them. It wasn't very long ago, I had some people complain to me about an incident that happened, and it never turned out to be exactly what everybody said it was. And, that kind of stuff happens. And yet I turn back around, and if you read in Wednesday or Thursday or Friday's paper, or maybe it's Monday's here, but there was a guy from Roswell. A guy from Roswell was threatening people and blowing up schools in Albuquerque or something, or buildings, and he's done it here. Well, I've been talking to that guy for, how long ago did I ask you about him, if we knew who Mr. Diaz was?
Well, I've been avoiding you for months. So.
We found him, and he was here, and he's pretty far up there, and now he's in Albuquerque jail, I guess. But there are a lot of problems out there. But man, we have a lot of other health care that we have to look at too in Roswell. It's not just our health care issues aren't just behavioral health. I'm going to tell you, they're a hell of a lot deeper than that. And we have one dentist anywhere around here that will see Medicaid dental work for kids with challenges. Nobody will see him except one. Then he flooded out. And I mean, in the state, they won't pay him a decent reimbursement on Medicare and Medicaid. So he can't really afford to see them either. And
the same thing with OBGYNs. There's not enough.
I know we don't have them either. And all the other towns, a lot of the other towns have already put an OBG. You got to go to Albuquerque to have it. And I mean, you wouldn't really know. But I mean, there are a lot of issues, and so we really need to study all about all healthcare and find out what we have to put them. Because anytime you take somebody with mental health and an issue and you take them to the hospital, you've got just as good a chance of them beating a policeman back to the scene of the incarceration, and as you do a juvenile. I mean, they're all in the same boat. They all get back, and they're back there raising hell and they never get to court.
So that's why this would be good, because they have the case management that would follow up.
Well, I understand the case management's all part of it. But when you get a good crisis team together and figure it out, then you know exactly how much that's going to cost to man that crisis team, and how you can cross-train maybe firemen or policemen to be a part of that. And maybe you have one officer that you have on a station on a duty that is dressed in pink suits or something, just so they can be the crisis manager or something, so they don't look so mean. I mean, Nancy's pretty mean to me all the time. So you look good in a pink suit. In all seriousness, we just have to come up with a plan if you want it, but get a plan. I don't have a problem doing it. But what do you do with an act you get them? Because once you take them one time, if anything happens, you're liable. The city is liable for whatever happens to that person or whatever that person does. You know, so that the things you know, look at and be concerned about it. Because the liability stuff is out of control in New Mexico by far.
So if I may, sir, at this point, all of your points are extremely valid because we have a lot of, there's a lot of risk, but really what scares me is the fact that we are actually sending 22 to 30-year-old officers into a scene like that by themselves with no mental health training. So not only is the risk for liability huge, but the fact that if we're saying that a seasoned fire chief had a terrible incident, that happens every day, that these kids are put at risk. Our officers are put at risk because they are not knowledgeable or properly trained to handle mental health. I think they're doing the best that they can, but yes, we definitely have to be aware that we're doing it every day, all day. Also, the other aspect, because when you're bringing up where do we put them, that's the other part of what we're building, because we recognize that there needs to be just more. That's the concepts behind the triage. That's the concepts behind the hide. And I say these things and you may not know what they are, but that's because this is just one small branch of a really large tree, because we do recognize that this team doesn't have the end all be all answers. They need the support in all these other areas that will be, set up by the county. And it took Dade County 23 years to build to where they are. This is just the first step, but also this 3-man team would be able to, here's the beauty, because we don't have the facilities, we don't have the doctors, having a licensed clinical social worker on it. That way, there's some of them that could actually be treated at the scene. They could actually, and that way they wouldn't even need to be that hospital visit. That licensed clinical social worker can actually determine and ascertain how they can help them right there. You cut out, they have the ability to, if necessary, immediately send them straight to Sunrise. They can admit them straight, and that's what we've already had the visits with the hospital staff to see how that works. And you wouldn't have our officers sitting in the ER waiting with people, taking 6 hours to get admitted to Sunrise, because our officers are sitting there at the ER waiting as they, have to be admitted. This is a direct admit. This is almost a treat on scene kind of concept. So that's why we're hoping it starts to reduce the numbers. It starts to reduce the numbers all around. But yeah, I thank you. That is a great suggestion in moving it just directly to.
We have kids already at CYFD in the office every night because they will not do what anybody else suggests to them. They are incorrigible with the families, wherever they get foster families they get put with. And they're there every night sitting in there and they're ruling the roost. And, heaven forbid, I don't want to see another accident again when kids are trying to acquire guns in the park and then the other kids come and shoot them. And so we have, 5 or 6 families that have been destroyed because dumb stuff that kids do trying to get guns. Now, when the stuff happened years ago, on South Washington thereabouts, and when that happened, we didn't have the propensity to have children having guns.
Right.
That's out there now. I mean, it's everywhere now. And that's why you can't send an ambulance person in or somebody who is not trained without somebody there to protect them. And I mean, I just feel that, they need protection. And I mean, it's real scary because with the amount of drugs out there and how bad drugs can make people's mind work.
Absolutely.
We could went this
All day, right?
Let's move forward, because, one of the things, and you guys, I don't know if you guys deal with it, Lance is gone now, but these designer drugs that they're coming up with, and you've got people that are on these things, and if you're trying to manage them, I mean, you're not managing them.
Did anyone else have anything?
You can tase them 3 or 4 times and they're still coming at you.
And we all know the need for Roswell, and we all know that we want to be innovative and we want to be proactive. And so the purpose for this was so that you start somewhere. We're not saying this is, like she said, the whole thing, but this is just asking the city, okay, let's look in so we can get started. We can't give you any numbers because you don't know how many people they're going to be. You don't know how many victims there, so I can't give you really any numbers. So I'm agreed. So let's make a motion, but we send this to full council for discussion, and then follow up where we go from there. We send the resolution to full council, right? Because with the resolution's already.
That just gives you
It's built up. It just gives them the authority to look at. Of course, we already know you need a fire person. We already know you need a police. So we already know those things. So I want to make a motion that we consider to send this to full council, to send the resolution to full council, resolution 25XX, to consider the adoption of creating a community response team for the city of Roswell and with the fire department.
Second.
Okay, any more discussions? No. All right, all those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed?
I didn't get a chance to speak, but I'm in favor of sending it to full council to move to the next step, as long as we don't have dollar amount. So, which it doesn't, because if it did, it'd
Be a different thing.
Yeah, I get
That's
that.
why I made the suggestion in the first place.
No, it's a good
Thank you.
suggestion.
Good suggestion.
Yep. Okay, motion carries. Thank you, everyone. Thank you for all your hard work, team, everyone. Okay, next on
See you
the
at the meeting.
agenda is consider recommending approval of issuing a purchase order to Howe Medical in the amount of $492,686.20 for 4 gurneys and 4 Life Pack 35s.
Yes, Madam Chair, members of the committee, back to ask for we're recommending and asking for approval to issue a purchase order to Howe Medical in the amount of $492,686.20. This is for 4 gurneys and 4 Life Pack 35. So a little bit of background on this. The gurneys are nice and they're good. It's on an auto load system, so it takes human error out of the equation. There's no dumping patients. Back injuries are out, the whole 9 yards. And so it's an auto load system that loads our patients. We click it in, and the equipment does the rest. This has actually become law in the state of Texas, is you actually have to have this machinery on your ambulance. And I would venture to say New Mexico is not far behind. So we're just going to go ahead and that's what we got to quote for from the beginning, so we can just beat them to the punch. And then the 4 Life Pack 35s are just cardiac monitors is what we got. We have 3 of them on the engines. The guys love them. They're really super high quality and provide the best patient care. So with that, I stand for any questions that you may have on the.
I guess the gurneys lock in too, so they're not rolling around.
Gurneys lock in, so if you roll it, the gurney stays in place as well. Like, so if an ambulance were to roll, and pray to the Lord, it never does, 100% secure. They will not come undone. They will not come out. It charges while it's in there. They're hydraulically operated, so when you're inside the house, you push the button, it raises it, and then when you load it and click it, it loads it for you in the whole 9 yards. We're not using backs, knees, shoulders, whole 9 yards.
I love this idea. I was just telling her I've been on the offside of this, all y'all not fat like me, so I've been on the falling end of one of those gurneys before when they picked them up from my house. And so I think I love this hydraulic thing. I love the idea. I might call them on purpose just so I can see.
That's right.
See. Down, lock me in. That's wonderful. I love it.
Sarah, question.
They're not cheap.
Are these going to come when the ambulances get here, or are they going to come and you have to store them until the ambulances get here? These are specifically for those.
Let me answer this, if you don't mind, Madam Chair, councilors. These life packs that we have, we currently just received 3 of them with the insurance money. to replace some of our older models. We currently had a Zoll system, and they're kind of outdated. They were refurbished when we bought them, and so they're kind of reaching their life span. So these units would actually match the 3 new ones that we have currently, and if they were to come in earlier, we could use those on our front running engines right now, so we could utilize them immediately. So that really wouldn't have anything on our end. They'd actually match.
That's the small one.
Yeah, the gurneys are being shipped straight to the vendor. So the ambulances will be shipped to Lubbock. So a good thing about Sims Martin Emergency Group, their Lubbock outfit is the outfit that works on all their ambulances across all 8 states or whatever they have. So they go to Lubbock, they get installed professionally there, and they are delivered to Roswell, with gurney and everything in hand. They come ready. They're not going to be sitting around. We can't use them for anything else. So
I could just see you guys, fire department.
Never haven't raised.
Let's hope not. But no, they will be drop shipped to Lubbock. Drop shipped to Lubbock.
Anything else?
No.
David?
You may want to talk about the funding source for these.
Yeah, Madam Chair, members of the committee, the funding source is going to be the same. We're using ordinance 23-10, so it's coming out of the public safety tax for running and operating an ambulance service. It's not coming out of general fund. It's coming out of the allotted money that we've been using the taxpayer dollars on. So it's just going to set up the ambulance service that the city would own.
Madam Chair, I make a motion.
Yes.
Make a motion to send this on to finance for approval of issuing a purchase order to Howe Medical in the amount of $492,686.20 for 4 gurneys and 4 life pack 35 S's.
Okay. Go ahead. It's more than second. All right, all those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? The motion carries. Thank you, Mr. Clark.
One last quick question before we move on that. So the gurneys, will they be, how long, or something happened to one of them, the warranties on them, how long will you have before, or if you needed another one, that it take to get another?
Yeah, that's a great question. To get a replacement, Stryker is really, really good. They are a national known brand. And we have word from Miss Alex, is the sales rep for this, is they're able to send one immediately to replace while the other one is getting worked on. Here's to hoping we don't have an issue, but you're right. Sometimes issues do happen. Sometimes you get limits on new things. So here's to hoping, but we have and the same with the cardiac monitors are the same. They'll send out a unit overnighted if they have to, and we'll have a backup while they repair the other one. So Stryker is who AMR uses. Stryker is who the entire all ambulance operations in the county use Stryker. Stryker is a very well-known brand, and if they can't get it to us, we can rely on our partners in the valley or Dexter Hegerman, those guys to help with the equipment and such. So
thank you. Sorry about that.
Thanks for all your work. Next on the agenda is the reports, and we first have Karen, emergency manager.
I was working the packet. I can answer any questions. I think the only update I have for that is a little bit about funding. So some of the projects we were doing, we just have to take a pause on meeting the funding right now. So that's the sort of stuff out. So, we had ordered so they're getting that in and getting it in stuff through the tab, but until we get word, otherwise we say they ask if we're spending federal. With that, any questions?
I had one, I don't know if you've heard this or not, but I had a realtor call me, and I guess a lot of the realtors are upset because they said FEMA is undervaluing the homes. So they can't get the insurance value or anything that they're supposed to be getting. Have you heard anything?
I have not.
Yeah, if you can ask.
We have a meeting with FEMA on Wednesdays.
Yeah, because they were very upset because they said I think I talked to the mayor today about it. He said he was going to look at maybe you can look at some of the actual values that are on, I guess the county keeps, where?
Comparative values.
Yeah, because the comparative values to make sure that they are not undervaluing the homes.
You can ask tomorrow, we have a standing Wednesday meeting with the Phoenix Festival.
Okay, I appreciate that. And then, so I can let them. Thank you.
Madam Chair, is there anybody in specific you can identify or?
The one I spoke with Alan, and he's with 21, but he said that there's, my sister's one too, she said it's the same thing, and then they said the Realtors Association, they're up in arms about it too. Because it's just hurting the citizens, if that's valid and true, hurting the citizens, so.
Thank you.
Okay, next is the Community Development Center.
Same thing, last month was kind of a hard month in our department, had a lot of people sick. But one of my guys is in the hospital for like 2 weeks. But had another one just come back. Right now our Secretary of Funds been battling some issues. But other than that, they're doing their daily duties, working on the mustard weed problem we're having right now.
Already blooming, it's too soon.
Water. Other than that, it's just as usual there.
Thank you. Next, Roswell Animal Services. Oh, shaking.
So same as always, we're always full with animals. We are currently working with our current software to try to get a better status of numbers and graphs for you. The calls for officers, because we've been having some issues with that. And then we do have a few cats that we don't have funds for the community cat program. So they're just pretty much sitting in our facility. We're not full yet, but who knows how long they're going to be there waiting for funds to get fixed and released. And then I also have the judgment and sentences attached to my monthly report, kind of showing what the outcomes are for the citations. They're not the best, but they're there if you guys want to do them. And then we did find out there are some funds to be able to put some drain covers, so hopefully that'll help a little bit in our facility, getting those drains covered and opening the process. Not transferring anything over. We want to add that we had 2 dogs that we are getting tested for December today. So
test or just the
we're doing the full test. So they were sent to the vet. They're going to get tested and the results to see what happens. But that's about it.
Well, it's sad to see our euthanasias exceeded our rescues this time, but that you can't do anything about that. Just the way the people are. I was also sad to see, I'm disappointed. Like you said, the outcomes, I mean, $25 fine. With fines like that, we're never going to fix the problem, but we can't. Don't judge what. Yeah. I do have to say, I had a local vet, he just dropped in this past week on them. Just dropped in and checked everything out, because he got a call from the state board because people have been complaining to the state vet, and the state vet knows them. So he went in, he dropped in. He was so happy with you guys. He called me, he said, I'm leaving with a big smile on my face. He goes, they care so much there and they're doing such a wonderful job. He goes, he didn't see any problems that this people are reporting. So you guys, deserve a round of applause. Okay. You guys, you need the good news, because all you get is the bad news, and I'm sure your job is not easy. Okay, yes, ma'am.
So I have a couple things on this. Having had an experience last week, I got a full picture on kind of what our animal service staff is up against in actually implementing any change. When you go to a place where you see 2 dogs chained up with a tow chain, and then learning the process, the actual citation process, the process of getting that dog into safety and the rights of the dog owner because of the dog being noted as chattel or property, they're up against a wall, like a serious wall. And the fact that I will say we absolutely need more citations written. I've asked if we could have, at least a required amount, understand why we're up against another wall with that. But, once we actually get those implemented, and I see that the outcome from the judge is not favorable, but that is on my to-do list as well, because these laws will only be followed once they're enforced and once they're carried through all the way to the end. I don't know if the judge recognizes that this dog owner has had, 4 chances in 6 weeks to fix it. I don't know that he's getting that picture, because he's actually letting them walk away with a $25 fine. And that in itself is ridiculous. He has to be the main enforcer. We all recognize that. So I'm not saying anything that you guys don't know. I'm saying it out loud for public record, because that's who votes. Our judge is not holding these people accountable. And if you see a dog in a yard, I guarantee our team has been by there.
Well, him not prosecuting too, it's hard on them or their officers, because they'll get frustrated. They're writing all these tickets and nothing's happened.
To what end? Absolutely. Yeah. But we, the people, have the ability to change that. And that is a vote. If your judge is not actually doing what you need him to do, remove him. Period.
One thing I did notice, okay, just one second. One more question, one more comment. You guys are tagging people for no rabies, but remember we added the other vaccinations on there too. So it's more than just no rabies. It's also the, okay, yes, sir.
I hear loud and clear, we've spent a lot of time when we passed the new ordinance, and a lot of thought was put into it. And now we're not seeing anything happen on the other side of the table. If all possible, I would get the judge to come in here.
Thank you.
And address your group.
Yep.
I'll invite him next month.
And ask him to come.
Yep.
So you know what he's doing and what he's not doing. I don't think it's an unreasonable call for you to do that to him.
Nope.
Accountability.
Yeah.
Exactly correct. I mean, you put a tremendous amount of thought into this to try to make this a better community, and it's not happening. I would recommend that you call a judge in here and have him do a presentation of what his thought process is on all this. And the other thing I just looked at was the percentage of animals that are coming from the county versus what's coming in from the city. And I'd like us to keep in control of that. It needs to be a topic of discussion at some point in time.
Yeah, we talked about bringing that up, about the county paying more.
Especially with how much they're paying.
The animals from this month.
Including the bite dog.
So how much are they paying at this point? I know that we've gotten them to contribute.
I think
I think we should charge per dog, but that's just me.
Have you put in your request to start finance committee's meeting?
We've talked about it over the years. Who's bringing them in? The sheriff or?
Yeah, the sheriff has an animal control officer. If they're not shooting them, they're bringing them in. That's what they are. That's what they're doing now.
Shooting the chihuahuas.
Who's bringing them in?
Okay. Any more questions for them?
I have one.
Yes, ma'am.
Are you guys going to the public when they come in to adopt that you do have some separate cases? Are you telling them?
So we don't tell them that we do have separate cases unless we have a positive, but we do let them know it's any animal that comes into our shelter. It's a stray off the street. We don't know when it comes to. We see symptoms, take them to the vet, but it's a risk, really.
I do have to say they vaccinate them on intake for distemper, and then every 3 weeks after.
It depends on age. So if they are below 6 months, it's every 2 weeks. If they're above 6 months, then it's the initial one and then a booster.
Because some of the ones, talking to the vet, if they test for distemper, they do a quick test. Well, if they've been vaccinated, he said they'll have a titer and they'll be positive, even if they don't have distemper because they've been vaccinated. But I'm not saying they don't. I don't, yeah, we'll find out, I guess, with these tests, if you actually have.
The officers are reminding people about the change.
Okay, anyone else? Okay, moving on. Thank you, lady. Good job. Consolidated dispatch. And thank you for the tip. We didn't know about that. That's wonderful.
Thank you, Dr. Hill, counselors. So staffing is our hot topic. As of press, we were at 10. We did receive another resignation for a fully released dispatcher. Everyone we've hired in the last 2 years, we have 2 left.
You mean you said Justin and Zach over there?
So we've got the relief dispatchers, the traveling dispatchers coming in. We have 2 coming in on the 27th. We've got another one coming in on the 3rd, and we've got another one that will be coming as they get the logistics set out. So thank you very much for that. You losing that one more is really going to hurt. Allison and I are still on the console, but the big thing is where's the end? Where's the end? I've talked to you about how hard it is to find them. You already know that. We're not keeping them. So almost every single one that has left says that public safety is not conducive to a quality home life, but never has been. So just a little bit on what we're doing. Allison will be at the Roswell High School career fair next. Tim Fuller at University High School, he's a counselor at University High School. We've got a program going in at University High School that is called the Emergency Telecommunicators course. So it's their certification program, just like the Fire Academy and the Law Enforcement Academy. So there's going to be a dispatch academy at University High. So it'll be an hour-and-a-half class that they go to. They'll get high school credit for it. And then when they graduate, they will be certified as emergency telecommunicators. So I'm going, it's an online class I'm going to do in April. I'm going to do a train the trainer so that I can teach the teachers to teach this class. So what does that do for us? It introduces us to these kids. And that, Gen X like me, we're becoming the boomer dinosaurs. So we've been hesitant to hire the younger generations, but this newer generation, they want to make a difference and they want to work. So we're hoping, and this is a nationwide kind of sweep, we're hoping if we can get these kids that are showing promise, but maybe college is not an option for them, we can introduce them to the career, get them in the door before they start falling to the things that you have in this area. This might be the solution. So other than that, there's really not much we can do, but we do have the traveling dispatchers for a bit. But just as a reminder, it takes 9 months to 12 months to get a dispatcher certified and cleared to work independently.
You have some waiting to go to the academy.
I'm sorry?
You have several waiting to go to the academy.
Not anymore.
Oh.
That's right. That's my sailor son, so his rings through. So staffing is our big thing. Let's see, we received PO today for the radio system. Thank you for that as well. So that equipment will be ordered and put in. I will be going to finance next meeting for the approved CAD project. So you'll be seeing that come down the line. And then for the building moving to Airbnb at the county, they've told me that the build out should be completed by the end of May. I originally told them that we have to be moved in and working by September 30th, but due to air races, I'm backing that up to July 30th because we want to be in and before the Airbnb game. If that can't happen, but the county understands that we're going to push it until after the air races.
That's very exciting about the University High, and I love that.
And it's not going to stop at university. They're going to offer it to early college and then Roswell College.
Because as we are becoming dinosaurs, I think it becomes a legacy when you actually pass the legacy on, and we need to start with those younger. I love that idea. Thank you.
Yeah, Allison and I are doing legacies. Thank you.
I know the chief had to leave. Did he give you anything to say or just? Chad, did you,
Call if you have any questions.
yeah, call for any questions.
Yeah, I actually do have a report on the mold, the suspected, reported, tested mold. So LNP Scientific Consulting LLC performed air quality assessments at RPD in various locations throughout the PD. The findings and opinions contained herein are based upon data collected during the investigation and laboratory analysis. It's several pages. I won't read the entire thing to you, but under purpose, spore and microscopic fragments of mold growth are naturally occurring both indoor and outdoor environments. However, when molds germinate and grow, they can produce large amounts of spores. Limitations: mold indoor air quality is performed in the open office area, briefing, and training area. That'd be done in the basement. Visual investigation: mold growth was not observed in the suspected areas. Mold air sampling results on January 10th, 2025. 7 air samples were collected for fungi counts at areas of concerning utilization using filtered cassettes. 6 air samples were collected indoors and 1 was collected outdoors. The indoor total spore count results in parts per million was a total of 40. The outdoor test results in parts per million spore count was a total of 40.
What's that mean?
Same level of mold outdoors as indoors.
Oh, so it's okay.
It's, yes.
Yeah.
It's, the 2 are relative.
Did they test for white mold?
I think they tested for all mold.
He made it up.
Thank you,
He's looking through the paper like.
To get all the credit here, okay?
That's a hard humor there.
Analytical results: mold spores found indoors were also found outdoors. In addition, the outdoor sample generated equal spore concentrations to those found indoors. Typically, when an airborne mold problem exists, mold spore concentrations identified indoors are notably higher than those found outdoors. Opinion: based on the visual investigation and laboratory results, LPSC believes that mold exposure concerns do not exist at this time.
Good, that's good news.
Good news.
That is very good.
When you're reading, I was like dreading the
The numbers and numbers.
But that was the.
Thank you.
Yes.
Okay.
I have,
Oh, yes, sir.
I have some concerns with this police, and I know they're short-handed, Madam,
Oh,
sorry.
go ahead.
You know, we got all these homeless all over town, they're laying on these benches, nothing's being done. And it's kind of sad because that's for our public, it's not for the homeless to be sleeping on it throughout the night. And if I'm walking down Main or whatever and there's a bench, I'm not gonna sit on that bench if somebody's in the homeless. So my suggestion, why don't we remove those benches? It's not doing our citizens anything.
One's downtown?
Yeah, not so much downtown. I'm looking at the one on Union and Second.
Oh, okay. Because I know downtown, the police
Yeah,
get them out of that area.
just the other ones.
You have campsites over there at Union Second.
Yeah, I know. And that's one of the concerns of the homeless. I mean, I got a guy over here in South Main. He has probably trashed a quarter of this building. He's taking it everywhere as he goes. And I'm sure Mike's seen that or heard about it.
Well, I saw there's a lot over there. Where was it? Towards the base where the guy's living with his
Yeah,
bike.
that one, that's the one.
Oh, that's what I thought about. Yeah.
Yeah.
He keeps moving. Up there. No, I got this gigantic box about big as this table when I was coming.
That bike
It was
was like
between the
Mad
two
Max.
bikes and he was rolling. The box was just enormous. I was like,
Yeah.
It's like a Mad Max.
it's like big.
I mean,
But I'm different than you, Mr. Monroe. At nighttime, I don't sleep on the bench. Now, that's one thing. You don't know if somebody slept on the bench or not. If you was at your house, you don't know. So I don't have any problem with them sleeping on the bench. Now, am I concerned that maybe I'll be walking and somebody's laying there? Maybe. But sleeping on the bench at night, I don't really concerned because you don't know whether they did it or not. You go to ride the bus the next day, you don't know if somebody was on that bench dirty, clean. Some of the people that name homeless may be cleaner than some of them. So I don't concern about. So the homeless problem itself is a concern, but the idea of like where are they gonna go? Where do you want? You know what I mean? Next thing they're gonna be, they'll be in your backyard, or they'll be, you know what I mean? At least they're on the street. I see them, and all they're doing is sleeping. Most of the time, I don't see a bunch of their stuff except for this one guy up south. I'm telling them one time he had a fence. He had just had it stringed up like a fence, like he had a whole yard. It was just, there was nothing but a fence, but that was his home. So I have a problem with that guy because it's just getting more and more and more and more and more. But most of the ones on the bench they just sleep and then they go on their merry way. So I don't necessarily care about that. And I feel like I see a lot of regular people using the benches. Right on, as I'm going up and down the street, sitting on the benches, waiting for the bus. So I see their value, just this sleeping. So, and I think the ones more off Main Street probably have more use. They're more off Main Street because people are not riding around them, seeing them as much. So maybe they stay there more often. And my church is right out there on Union and Second. So I see those two guys. There used to be one on both sides. And I don't know if they was having duels across the street, but there's one, the other guy, the black guy is gone now, and it's just the other guy that sits on the other side. But I just see somebody scrolling, maybe if somebody's rolling through or something, just kind of, this speeds on for, just have the police officers.
So, Madam Chair, I think there are welfare checks that are done.
During the daytime, yeah.
You have to consider that, these are people with rights, and usually they're in a public thoroughfare.
Yeah, so you can't
so
step.
it's open to the public.
So I can sleep there if I need to. Then,
So I'm just saying the police have a tough job to do.
Right, because they say it's a public property, and I'm a citizen, so.
My question, I know back a few years ago, and it's probably still happening, but you had where people were under the bridges and stuff. And I know at one point in time, we had to take a couple of truckloads of stuff out from underneath the bridge there where the old Payless up there on South Main.
Well, it's not there. I don't see anything.
A real safety problem, but these guys are collecting all this stuff, and bridges are always a good cover for them.
So our fire department did a really good job in these recent floods, getting ahead of that and going down the Morindo.
Yeah.
Just kind of, those guys had already cleared out, fortunately.
Yeah.
It's just not as much.
I just got to keep track of. That becomes a safety issue there up on the bridges and piling all the stuff up there.
Okay, if we can move on to the fire department report, sorry.
Oh, you got one more? I'm sorry.
Madam Chair, councilors, our report is in your packet, stays as is. Just a couple of comments. We are, Ashbridge had reached out through Abraham Chaparro for us to maybe provide some fire protection while they're cutting on the bridges on the waterways. So occasionally you may see one of our brush trucks kind of scooting down there. But that's what they're doing. We're just kind of helping out, trying to expedite the waterway cleanup. Still working with Karen to wait on AmeriCorps to call and reach out to us. They were wanting us to ride along with them for security reasons and just city familiarization to kind of expedite that process. So we're just kind of waiting to hear from them, and we've got our command staff ready to go when they make the call. We did have a tryout practice this Saturday. A couple of the counselors were kind enough to go out and try. So thank you guys for coming out there and giving it a shot.
You guys pulling?
Yeah. I carried that, I picked up and carried that hose.
Talking about pulling a muscle.
Oh, no. She did it, but I felt like it took me 3 to 4 days.
Oh, well, he's catching up with you guys.
I took wood this winter, so doing the little sledgehammer wasn't bad at all.
We did fill all of our command staff positions, so unfortunately that still left us 14 people short, and so we were able to hire back 3 that we're not going to have to train. They're fully certified.
That's good.
So we're putting them right on. They've got a couple of lateral task books that they got to complete, but we'll put them right on shift and kind of fill some of those spots. So we're going to be left with at least 11 spots for this next academy, which starts March 10th. Tryouts for that will be on the 22nd, this coming Saturday. So Chief Garcia is putting on a pretty good little program out there. So we're pretty excited to see how many people. He had about 11 or 12 come out just for the practice session. So we're pretty excited to see what he does with that on Saturday. You guys are all welcome to come out if you'd like to. It's from 8 to 11. And, they should have a pretty good.
Just Saturday with PD.
Yes, sir.
Yeah.
We'll do the
So
joint.
if you pass the physical test with PD, then you pass fire, vice versa.
Well, we claim our test is harder than PD's. So what PD's allowed their candidates to do is if they pass the fire combat challenge, they'll bypass their tryout and let them proceed with our completion.
These go-getters around town, male and female, that want to be a police officer or a firefighter, this is a real opportunity.
Right.
Show up Saturday, get out there and show some love.
So if they can't pass the fire, like lifting, you guys were great, by the way. That body, I couldn't lift it. If they can't do that, they can move over to the PD.
Yes. Yeah, they still need a check.
What's the thing on the drivers? How is the situation with the driver?
With these recent promotions, that's going to put a little dent in our progress. But we're already in the process of putting on our next driver's test. Should happen early March. We'll put our company officers test at the end of this month on the 24th. So we'll fill those company officer positions, and that'll let us know how many driver's positions we'll have available, and then we'll test for those. Guys are already, you'll see them out at the training field. They've been out there for the last 2 weeks, just kind of doing company officer training and driver training. So
If I could chime in real quick, Chief Chavis and his team have done a heck of a job rebuilding our fire department over the last 2 years. You know how many academies we've run, how many numbers we've put in each one of those academies. So no crying, no whining, they just did it.
Yeah.
Just made it happen. So kudos. Thank you, Chief.
Absolutely. Thank you.
appreciate it. But yeah, I'll stand for any questions if you guys have any.
Yeah. All righty then, I think that was everybody. Any public participation?
It's still too long.
Madam Chair, we have one question.
Yes.
Next meeting is on 18th. Circle.
Oh, you want me to make it?
I won't be here again.
Okay.
I won't be here either. I'll be in Houston.
Are we gonna do quorum?
Yeah, 3.
When is it? So Carlos and, do we want to move it?
You can move it. We can move it. Wow. It's cool.
Okay, well, for all three gonna be here then.
We can, move to that Thursday. The 20th. I could
I'll
be
be
here the
gone.
20th.
I'll be gone that all week of spring break down in Houston.
Oh, I didn't realize it's spring break. Okay. You're gonna be here, right?
That's pretty good.
Okay.
I don't take spring break. My birthday's the week before. So
All right, then, no public participation. Thank you, everyone.
Fire me real quick.
It's kind of so.
So Jeremy's hanging it up. Jeremy Miller done. Bravo.